stand by for action.
Thanks for joining me. My name is Dave Miller. I am the Unpleasant Blind Guy. I want to start out by thanking Monique, Eric McCurdy, and Sue from New Mexico for kind words about the last show. Just want to say that very happy that Sue from New Mexico is back and well from the hospital, doing the networking thing that Sue does so well. Glad to have you back, Sue. All right, this time we're going to combine the main story and the Awesome American in one. Now, this is a story that a lot of people are going to cover this week, I'm sure, but as is true with many stories, I intend to cover it from a different angle. This story has come to me originally via Bobo from Texas. I just want to stop for a moment and say that 25 years ago, if someone had come on broadcast radio and said they had gotten a story from Bobo from Texas, they would have had a net thrown over them. Today, we have the internet and Twitter, where people like Bobo from Texas can pass stories along, and they can become part of the conversation. So thank you, Bobo from Texas, for this story from the Daily Caller. Headline: GOP Senate candidate thrown out of press meeting after calling out disrespectful reporter. Now, this is by Brendan Bordelon of the Daily Caller, filed on May the 2nd. And it features the Awesome American for this show, Mark Callahan. Oregon Republican candidate for Senate Mark Callahan was thrown out of a meeting with reporters from local alternative newspaper Willamette Week after chastising a reporter for writing blah, blah, blah in his notepad after another candidate explained her policy positions. A group of GOP Senate hopefuls, each seeking the Oregon paper's endorsement, sat down with a group of Willamette Week reporters. One candidate, Jo Ray Perkins, called into the meeting, by telephone by the way, to explain her political platform, but not all the journalists were interested, and Callahan happened to notice.
Okay, thank you.
You want to talk about disrespect? I see what you're writing down there. You just wrote down blah, 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 blah for everything that Jo Ray said. Jo Ray is a respectable woman.
Mark,
why are you not respecting her by writing blah, 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 blah on your notepad?
Mark, we're going to move on. I'm going to ask you a question. And if you answer respectfully, we might be willing to let
you have to give respect in order to get respect. Right now, on that side of the table, you're not giving very much respect to the five of us in our time here.
Wasting by doing this?
I just see what your colleague here is putting down on his notepad, and he put down blah, 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 when Jo Ray was giving a very detailed and descriptive answer.
Mark, here's my question. Climate change, do you believe that's a myth or a reality?
It's a myth.
It is?
Yes.
Okay.
Where are you on the Easter Bunny?
What's that?
I said, where are you on the Easter Bunny?
I'll stick with it.
Are these really the questions that I was called here to answer to quote movie code? Really?
Representative...
I called you out for putting blah, 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 blah on your notepad, and now you're asking me questions like this? Really? Really? Are we talking about this now?
Let's move on.
Okay, how about you ask a very serious and respectful question instead of asking a little childish question?
Mark, I just asked you if climate change was a myth.
And I answered your question.
So can I now move on and get the response from someone else? And if you're not going to let me, I'm going to ask you to leave. Okay? That's 2 strikes.
Who do you think you are?
Okay, you may leave now. Go ahead. You're done here. This is neither a fair or a balanced meeting. This is a meeting for us to do.
I know it's a meeting being asked by disrespectful, thin-skinned liberals like yourself.
There's the door.
I got better things to do with my time.
You clearly do.
I'm not going to waste time taking down the little trust fund babies playing at being reporters for this little weekly shopping rag. It would be fun and easy, but in this case, it wouldn't be so much shooting fish in a barrel as tossing a hand grenade in the barrel. These leftist propagandizers are frankly just too easy a target. What I'm going to do is talk about the candidates that stayed, the candidates that went in the first place, and the implications and what should be done. Now, what you didn't get to hear in the soundbite was one of the other Republican candidates answering this quote-unquote reporter's question about global warming. Now, a lot of you may be asking yourselves, why did the other Republican candidates not leave after Mark Callahan was kicked out of the meeting? Certainly, I think that would have shown solidarity. But they didn't. And I think this is a very telling thing. It's a very telling thing that Republican candidates had to go to this little birdcage liner for an endorsement at all. I think any of those candidates would have used their time more wisely getting a permit, standing on a street corner, and reading out their political positions through a megaphone. Instead, they did what too many people on the right do. What, in my opinion, needs to be done no more. They went to a hostile press and expected somewhat honorable treatment, and they got absolutely none. Now, I'm going to post this article at UBG Contact on the Twitter, where you can get hold of me with questions, comments, awesome American suggestions. It is the contact point for this show. This Daily Caller article has a video in it of what went on in this meeting. And it's a long video, but the pertinent points begin about an hour and 6 minutes into it, and you can select to get into that portion of the video, and I suggest that you do. But if you listen to the first part, the so-called reporters set out the rules of the meeting. They say they won't be able to give equal time and that sort of thing. This, I think, was to cover themselves. This was a setup. I believe that these punks brought these Republican candidates into their offices to try and goad them into acting improperly so that they could get a story out of that. I think the mentality was, hey, let's get these stupid Republicans in and maybe we can get them to do something. But Mark Callahan didn't bite. He saw that something was wrong. He said so. He acted honorably, and yes, he was kicked out. That can often happen. It's happened to me a few times. But there are times in the United States of America when it's time to speak up and speak out, regardless of the consequences. Mark Callahan did not bust the reporter in the chops, as I would have certainly been tempted to do. Instead, he left the meeting, and so should the rest of the Republican candidates. Mark Callahan left the meeting. They did not. And I've seen a lot of people saying they know now who they would vote for Senate in this race. We have clear choices in this upcoming 2014 election. We can choose the people who go out on their own, and we can choose the people who will stay with leftists who will abuse them and turn everything they say into statist propaganda. The choice is pretty clear, in my opinion. You know, one of the pukes masquerading as a reporter told Mr. Callahan, "There's the door." And I think that all people who want to serve in American politics who are on the right should take that as a signal. Yes, there's the door. Time to stop wasting time talking to statist press outlets of all kinds. Not just jumped-up little school newspaper like the Willamette Week, but local TV stations that won't give fair reporting. All the big three-letter networks, nationally. And cable news channels that also propagandize and carry water for the left. I'm saying this to all the candidates on the right. Look, guys, whether you show up or not, they're going to do stories, and they're going to be stories that make the right look bad and the left look good. This has been going on now for decades. It's time for you to begin to concentrate your efforts on things such as direct contact with the minority communities in your area and change your press strategy to the real alternative media. Now, what is the real alternative media? That, my friends, is what you're listening to right now. It's this show. It's the shows that are on Blog Talk Radio. It's programs like Tammy Bruce, Dennis Miller, Dana Lash, and it's on outlets like The Blaze. There are national alternative media outlets that you can use that are trusted by the people you want to reach for you to go on to and make your positions known. Time to stop talking to the liars and the phonies and start speaking to the people who will tell the truth. And for daring to tell the truth and for calling out the disrespect of some of the worst of the left, Mark Callahan is an awesome American. That's it this time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for listening, and may your God go with you. Goodbye.